Well, hello there, fellow geeks and geekettes, and welcome to another review. Today, I've chosen a single issue for a review because I was going through my collection of single comic book issues, or floppies, as some people call them, and just, going through them, flipping through them, enjoying them. And I came up this, actually, which is a reprint of the X-Men issue 25, which came out in 1993, I believe, but it was reprinted in 2018 as True Believers, issue 1, Wolverine Fatal Attractions, because the X-Men issue 25, which is this comic basically, was a part of a huge crossover event in the early 1990s called the Fatal Attractions, and a lot of talent went into this particular crossover, as I'm sure all X-Men fans know, but just to remind somebody who might have forgotten, many famous writers and comic book artists, pencilers, joined at the time to create this huge story, which included titles such as the Uncanny X-Men or the Adjectiveless X-Men, which was this one as well, Wolverine, X-Factor, and so on and so forth. And very briefly and very shortly, the story revolved around a virus, an epidemic, which was killing mutants, right? And some of the mutants, led by Magneto, escaped to a satellite, which they called Avalon, circling around the Earth in the space. So they escape this epidemic. And things happen. It is a vast and long story, as I said, consisted of many single issues, but it came to Magneto, him being a villain, gathering some mutants. Colossus, by the way, joined them as well, for a brief time, being a member of the Magneto Acolytes people, and so really maybe some people could consider him to be a villain for a couple of issues, and it came to Magneto wanted to, kill all the non-mutant inhabitants of the Earth from his satellite up there. And that's where we're getting to this particular issue, where the leaders of the USA and the Earth, they issued the so-called Magneto Protocols, which meant that they secured the Earth with electromagnetic pulse, which really made Magneto not being able to enter, the atmosphere. But he being, or him, Magneto, being a strong mutant, he managed, or at least, he tried and he did some magnetic things, and there was a huge danger of him really destroying a lot of the Earth and killing a lot of people, and that's when, see here, forgot to show you some of the artwork. Here's Magneto being kinda, angry with the people and with the Earth, messing up with the electromagnetic field, going to Earth, deciding to finally, end all this, and it caused a lot of unpleasant things all around the world, which, the inhabitants of the world noticed, including all the heroes on Earth, such as the Fantastic Four, as you can see here, the Thing, and Mr. Fantastic. There you can see, so that was in the USA, in Manhattan, New York. People felt it in Moscow. People felt it in Tokyo. Here, people felt it in Britain, as you can see here. Right. So all around the world, people felt the attack of Magneto. And that's when Professor Xavier, well, he himself got angry, right? And he decided to fight Magneto, and with the use of his psychic powers, psychic mutant powers, put him in a vegetative state, so he can't harm anyone any longer. And in addition to this, he put on the so-called Shi'ar exoskeleton, which enabled him to walk, actually, right? Because every X-Men fan knows that Professor X, can't walk. He is disabled. He's on a wheelchair. But because he was using most of his powers to operate this Shi'ar exoskeleton, he needed the help of Jean Grey and the other X-Men, such as Cyclops and the Beast. So they attacked Magneto, and there's Rogue. Of course, she had a little thing with Magneto in the past, so she wasn't really excited about this whole idea. And of course, Wolverine was there as well. And I am getting to why this issue was actually reprinted under the title of Wolverine and not X-Men 25 or X-Men Fatal Attractions. As you can see Wolverine here. By the way, the artwork, which was done by Andy Kubert, it's like, it screams the 90s X-Men. It's probably most certainly and definitely my favorite era of the X-Men. Just look at that. This is, in my eyes, in my opinion, this is true comic. Like, this is the 90s era of comic books in general is my favorite. Be it the X-Men or Batman being published in the 1990s, or Lobo. It's just the best comics you can ever read. Look at the artwork. Look at the art. Look at the Wolverine in his berserker rage. Snicked. That's fantastic. It just makes me so excited to be a comic book fan. But it is very wordy. Fabian Nicieza wrote this particular issue, and not only can you see a fantastic artwork, but you read quite a lot, right? I would compare this, if you enjoyed modern comic books, maybe something like Scott Snyder. He likes to write long narrative passages in his comics. So I would maybe compare this to him. Look at the fun. No, I'm getting to the thing. I'm getting to the core of it. Now, spoiler alert. If you haven't read this over 20 years old comic, just stop this video now and go away, right? 3, 2, 1, and the spoiler comes here. Now, this issue is key and important, and I just closed the issue just when I found the page I wanted. Right, yeah. This issue is key because something happens to Wolverine. Magneto does something to Wolverine when fighting the X-Men, when the X-Men are trying to protect the Earth from Magneto. And this affected Wolverine for some time at this age and era, and people discovered something about Wolverine that they had not known before. And that was that his claws and his bones, actually, inside his skeleton, wasn't made of adamantium. Or at least I think that it is the first time we get to know that. If I'm wrong, please do correct me in the comments down below. But it just so happens that Magneto uses his magnetic powers and strips the adamantium from Wolverine's claws and Wolverine's bones, Wolverine's skeleton. Completely and absolutely strips the metal out of his body. And here comes the panel, here comes the page where it all happens, and it is one of the most iconic panels and scenes of the entire history of the X-Men and Wolverine publications, right? Can I show you? That one. That is where Magneto strips adamantium from Wolverine's skeleton. And that's basically almost where the issue ends. I'm not going to spoil any more. I'm not going to show you anymore because I just really don't want to spoil the entire story, the whole story arc or the whole event, because it's just so awesome and I want everybody to enjoy it who hasn't read it, or people who have. I want you to re-enjoy it by yourself, not me narrating the entire story. But the one thing I will show you is this. This was the original cover, which was a wraparound cover of X-Men issue 25. All the issues at the time included these holographic cards or trading cards, which were included here. And the artwork of Andy Kubert has become, I would say, one of the most iconic artwork in the history of X-Men. So that's the gist of it. I came up this issue, I remembered what it was about, I reread it very briefly. Just each and every time I look at this frowning, evil face of Magneto, boy, and these are the comics that make me remember why I'm such a huge X-Men fan, and why X-Men are, or is my favorite comic from Marvel, and why they are my favorite heroes, Marvel superheroes. I just thought that this issue was so iconic that I could do an entire review just on this issue and didn't have to pull out my collected edition of the Fatal Attractions, but I really kind of did the review of the entire epic anyway, so never mind. If you haven't read Fatal Attractions, I do recommend it. It's one of the best stories, in general, but definitely one of the best X-Men stories ever written, ever drawn. Awesome artists like Andy Kubert, Adam Kubert, John Romita Jr., Greg Capullo, not even mentioning all the writers that wrote the stories. So if you haven't read it, buy it, read it. It just came out in the X-Men Milestones collected edition, because I believe that the hardcover is sold out or out of print. And or if you have read it and know the story, it is one of the books that is worth rereading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. So X-Men issue 25 or X-Men Fatal Attractions, the entire story obviously gets 10 adamantium bones out of 10 adamantium bones, and it will forever be one of my favorite X-Men issues and storylines. And that would be all from me today, my friends. See you at the next video. Take care and bye.